Political analyst Dirk Kotze is a professor in political science at the University of South Africa. He joins us now to talk about various events that occurred today. Professor Kotze, perhaps let's just first start with the outcomes of the Constitutional Court judgment denying President Cyril Ramaphosa direct access to challenge the Section 89 panel report. Now, we heard the presidency spokesperson say it's just a matter of procedure, but the reading has been different from some quarters. And I'm just wondering, if we move beyond the noise of the legalities, the legalese, politically, what is at stake?
Well, I think what is politically at stake is that President Ramaphosa wants to, or is seeking for a court judgment which says that which sets aside the panel of three that submitted the report to Parliament with respect to the impeachment process. If it will be successful with that, then to a large extent he will have an argument to say, but he has been exonerated by a court, which means will have then the opposite effect of the panel report, which said that there are some considerations that must be followed on in the procedure in Parliament. So for him, this is an exceptionally important point, that he wants to have the support over and above the fact that it was rejected by a vote in Parliament, but also that there's a pronouncement by court to say, well, there is that the report was incorrect and that the allegations against him therefore cannot stand. So that for him is an absolutely important argument in order to get rid of the Phala problem for him.
And we also see the opposition parties calling on the Speaker of Parliament to appoint ad hoc committee. This would obviously take the matter forward. But I was just listening earlier on to my colleague Vuyon Voko speak to a legal expert about how this matter just seems to draw in the different legs of state, but how it's important that for our democratic constitution, that the one doesn't supersede the role of the other. By making a ruling on one, it should not be assume that it is an instruction to Parliament, for instance, to do exactly that, appoint an ad hoc committee.
No, it should not be. And I think this is where the courts over time have been accused sometimes of judicial overreach, and where the courts have become, in the meantime, quite sensitive that they don't do that. Courts can make pronouncements about, for example, in a review process about specific aspects of actions that has been procedural aspects, or about, in other senses, about content. But it cannot give the Parliament an instruction about decision making, about what is the very essence of a procedure that must be followed and what should be, to a large extent, the outcome or how they should approach it. It is a fine line between the two, but I think over time the courts have become quite sensitive that they are not seeing that they have become, in a sense, the institution, the state institution that gives instructions to Parliament and override the authority of Parliament.
And I use this particular event to draw a thread, particularly when it comes to the confidence enjoyed by President Ramaphosa from the public, the kind of decision-making and transparency he is sought to have or show, because there is this issue of the cabinet reshuffle. And at the beginning of the year, when he was speaking about the work that the NEC is doing, he would say, forget the Section 89 panel report saga, I'm over it, I've moved beyond that. But the question is, can we say we can't draw a straight line from what happened at that parliamentary sitting on voting of that report, and how he's going to move around these musical chairs of the executive?
I don't think there's a direct correlation between the two. What he has done was, what has happened in between is obviously the ANC's national conference, which gave him a much stronger position than before that. And when the vote happened in Parliament about the panel's report, and also where he is today with respect to the well, not only possibility, but that he is going to change the composition of cabinet. The composition of cabinet is purely within his ambit of authority. The fact that he consults with different parts of the alliance or within the ANC is his decision. He's not forced to do it by the constitution or any other practice or tradition. So in this sense, what he's doing is actually, I think there's a lot of more of pressure and expectations coming from the public side. The fact that he made an announcement also in the SONA speech about a new Ministry of Electricity. These are, and then as well as the now final resignation of the Deputy President, these are the pressures that really built up for him to be able to take a decision. At the same time, there's the pressure from within the ANC. They all know they are very close, just a bit more than a year from a national and the provincial elections. So the best possible team of the executive, the ministers, the leaders of the ANC must be brought together so that the ANC can actually campaign for the next 13, 14 months in the best possible way to make a success of the elections for themselves. So the cabinet reshuffle is relevant in different contexts. From a public point of view, from an internal ANC point of view, as well as from a government point of view.
And that's what I want us. I want you to help us understand. As a political analyst, we are watching all of this from the sidelines. There's been a lot of speculation and intrigue about whether he goes in as a president who's more emboldened, who's consolidated his power, or as some have called him, a wounded buffalo. So the choices that he makes, including that of deputy president, there's the issue of a tradition that the deputy president of the party becomes the deputy president of a state. Should we believe that anything has changed? How should we read the situation at the moment?
I don't think it has changed fundamentally, although each time there is such appointments, there are specifics about it also. But in this case, I think it's quite similar to what has happened when President Ramaphosa became deputy president after he followed on the Kgalema Motlanthe, who failed to contest the presidential election against President Zuma in 2012. So to some extent there are similarities between that. But I think what we are seeing now is that President Ramaphosa is certainly, from a sort of objective point of view, is in a stronger position than where he was in 2017 when he was the first time elected as ANC president, and in 2018 when he became the national president. I've just gone through the ways in which he changed his 3 times the cabinet, in 2018, after the 2019 election, and then in August 2021. And the majority of the persons who he inherited from President Zuma are not anymore in the cabinet. So he made major changes in his cabinet composition. So where he is now is not so much anymore about internal ANC politics, but it's rather now about what will be the most effective executive that can deal with the public issues, whether it is electricity, whether it is about service delivery, whether it is about the corruption problems, and whether it is also about how to deal with economic development, because that is what the public is interested in. It's not so much about the internal issues of the ANC, but how does it affect all of us? And that is on that basis that the ANC can now make a change in terms of the public opinion and what can they expect in next year's election. So that is why this situation is so fundamentally important for President Ramaphosa, that he makes the best choices for his cabinet.
All right. Professor of Political Science at UNISA, Professor Dirk Kotze, thank you so much for your time and speaking to us about the political developments around the presidency and, of course, news of cabinet reshuffle in the offing. We've been hearing it for days now. We're told this week it's definitely going to happen.